Welcome everybody. I am sitting here with 8-0 Seth Manfield. This deck, for everybody at home, I've been watching him for the last 3 rounds trying to catch him because every time I see this deck, there's another rare that pops out of it. So tell me about this particular deck. How did it come about, and was it as easy to build as it looks?
It was quite easy to build in that I knew I was going to be playing red and white right off the bat. Nahiri just immediately stood out to me, the mythic rare, and then I had other rares to accompany with it. So, I mean, admittedly, yes, I was very lucky to open this pool. I think it's great. I'm playing 4 rares, I believe, and all of them are premium cards, like constructed-worthy cards.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no big deal. Just it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. So, not that many creatures. My spells are great. My deck is great. I've been cruising through the tournament.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, and I guess when a lot of players would look at this particular deck, they might still build it wrong. Okay, because I see only 12 creature type spells. And obviously, Vessel, will produce creatures, but it's only 12. Why did you decide to go with 12 and not the normal maybe 16 or 17 that I've seen in other decks?
Sure. I mean, normally I'll play more creatures in my decks. This is kind of unusual for me to play this few creatures. It's really 11 plus the Vessel, essentially. Right. But the reason I'm doing it is because my spells are so good. I was trying to trim spells, and yes, I have a couple more creatures I could be playing, like some 1/2s, cards like that, but those cards didn't really excite me, and I feel like I have enough ways to close out the game. I have Nahiri and Mad Prophet,
right? So
I can loot through my deck to find creatures when I need to. Obviously, I've gone Ultimate with Nahiri,
right?
So you can find a creature with Nahiri. But a lot of the times you'll play like a Dauntless Cathar or a Vessel, and you'll trade, and you'll just have like a random 1/1 flyer left over, and sometimes those are good enough to get the job done.
Well, and I'm looking at, there's a lot of removal in the deck. You have the Madness Enablers. You have the things like when you're dreaming about a pool, you have all of the good things that are in here. What is the worst part of the deck? Because obviously you can look at the cards and go, man, there's so many rares. What don't you like about what's going on?
So it's hard for me to touch on what I don't like because I really like this deck a lot. The creatures could definitely be better, but when you've got so many removal spells, a lot of the times you can just kill everything they're playing. We talk about Sealed and how important removal is to have in your pool. Declaration in Stone, Avacyn's Judgment, and then the double Fiery Temper. I would maybe like 1 or 2 more Madness outlets, but people have been looking at my deck and they're like, wait, you don't have any Madness outlets.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I saw that there was the Mad Prophet, but I didn't see a lot of others.
People don't necessarily think about Nahiri as a Madness outlet, but it's a great Madness outlet because you can just discard. And, you may look at the deck and not think about that interaction immediately, but just discarding a Fiery Temper or Avacyn's Judgment has just been
Of course,
insane.
that card's bonkers.
Yeah, but I can enable Delirium, not super easily, but I can get my Moorland Drifter and my 3/2. It just takes a while, but the games go long. It's not your typical red-white aggro deck. It
doesn't look like an aggro deck.
Yeah, so.
Well, again, we don't have that many creatures here, but I still see a piece of equipment over there. Is that ideal in a situation where you have so few creatures, or is that piece, how well have you done with that piece of equipment?
So, the equipment I was unsure about because I haven't played with it a ton. It is a very powerful card. I've got 2 cards which transform, so it's great with the 2-drop and the 5-drop, and my curve's relatively low here. I have sided it out. It's okay. I would say it's great if you can ever flip it. Otherwise, it's +1/+1. So it's not the best card. It works well with the Strength of Arms if you have it in play, and then you can get an additional 1/1 human with your Strength of Arms. But yeah, it's not the most exciting card in the deck. It is really good in some decks. Here it's just like,
it's mediocre.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and you have so much going on in this deck. I understand wanting to make the creatures that you do have a little bit bigger, and obviously if it flips, that's a whole other conversation. Beyond Nahiri, what is the best card? I guess that's not even a question either. Obviously, Judgment. So let's take out those 2 cards.
Yeah.
What other cards, like non-rare cards, have really been performing for you?
The best creature for me has been the Dauntless Cathar, and then also the Mad Prophet, but just the Cathar, just playing a 3/2, there's not really good answers to the Cathar, and so a lot of the times you'll just trade it off. And that's kind of going outside of the rares. One of the cards that a lot of people have questioned me about is the Not Forgotten, because it's a pretty unusual card. It's 2 mana. You can put one of your cards back on top of your deck or on the bottom if you want to, or you can mess with your opponent's graveyard if you want to in the same way. And it's been pretty nice to, if Nahiri dies or if you want to rebuy Avacyn's Judgment, that has actually came up.
Okay.
And so it's not a card that people usually play. Like, it's not normally.
That's what I was going to say. I don't
card.
think that would be a card that's in sealed that I would play, but in a deck that has a lot of bombs, having a second copy goes a long way. Right?
Yeah, it's been good in that I'm happy it's in the deck.
Is there anything that you wish you would have changed? Like, obviously, when we talk about siding out the piece of equipment, things like that, are there cards in your sideboard that you feel, you know what, I maybe should have played this card in the main deck? I mean, I know you're 8-0, okay, let's be real, but what do you think you could do a little bit better in hindsight?
I just think there's been a couple matchups where I've wanted to board in more creatures to get aggressive if I'm playing against a super control-y deck, which has happened a couple of rounds. And so I do think that you have to be willing to transform a little bit after board. I can't say for certain that I would play anything different than this configuration, but I'm also not. I mean, it's my first sealed deck of the format, so.
Oh, this is the first time you've played sealed at this point?
My first sealed, yeah.
How lucky,
So,
right?
yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate to have the cards that I have here. I don't have any more good expensive creatures.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was there anything else on this side that you could maybe fit in?
No,
top end?
Unless I'm going to splash another color, and the other colors, yeah. So it would just be sort of changing out like this Fox for like a 2 mana 1/3 prowess. Like, I have a couple of those on my board, but it's kind of not that important. I've been swapping a little bit, but overall the power level has been really high that I don't think it's easy to mess up when you got so many good cards here.
Well, I think, like I was saying before, it's easy to mess something like this up by maybe playing too many creatures and trying to be really aggro as opposed to being what this deck is. And I know I want to say it's kind of mid-range, but it looks kind of control-y to me, and grindy, and you're going to have a lot of those games where I would come over and I'd watch, and I'd see nothing on board, here's a 1/1 token, we're doing something with it, or it was just Nahiri on board, and we're just trying to dig and find an answer. So, is that where you're trying to push the games to?
It's weird because the curve is so low. Normally with low curve decks, you are an aggressive deck. You are right, though, that a lot of my games have been more oriented towards Nahiri. If I draw Nahiri, then I'm happy to play a controlling game. I also have Sin Prodder, which is a card that people have been like, Sin Prodder is not that good, because a lot of the times you mill away, your opponent chooses to mill away some of your better cards, but it's been impressive. Like, it's not the best rare in my deck, but it's
still a rare.
If you play it on turn 3, it's got Menace, which a lot of people don't think about the Menace.
Right. I didn't notice it had Menace until I saw it was either you or another player that was close by that attacked with it, and the opponent Snap tried to block it.
Yeah.
It's like, no thanks. That's not a thing. So I do like. And for me as a player, again, I would be more nervous about playing a low creature deck, but I think seeing the power level of it, what you're telling, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the learning part of this, is that you can't always go 8-0 and 9-0 with decks that are just always aggro. You can play more control-y type decks if the rare support it, if the uncommon support it, double fiery temper, things like that. So going into next round, I don't know if you've seen anything else that's out there. What do you think is the biggest worry for your deck?
The biggest worry is just like the huge late game haymakers, like other planeswalkers, the 6 mana Wrath of God, the Descend. I played against that one round. One of my losses, I won the match, but it was one of my losses. I lost a game to the Wrath of God, and that's pretty good against me. Any other bombs, basically, I think I can beat like any normal decks.
We're not going to see normal decks at 8-0, right?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, my opponents have mulliganed a reasonable amount. I played against a few pros so far.
Okay.
So, been able to. I can't complain.
You've been doing work.
Yeah.
You've been doing work. Well, before I let you go, you're going to get the draft tomorrow. Have you got to do any drafting?
I've done about 7 drafts.
Okay. And then, so what's the what's the advice that you would give in draft?
I mean, normally in draft, I like to stay pretty flexible, but just knowing all of the different color pairs and what they're trying to do is super important. Like, if you don't just randomly start taking cards, like if you're taking green and red cards, but you're not like taking wolves, thinking about them, you're just taking like humans, or that's just one example, like, or black-red vampires, thinking about the creature types of the creatures you're taking and the synergies is really important. So if you don't know a specific archetype, like say you've never drafted blue-black, and you don't know what cards you would put in a blue-black deck, I would just say avoid it. Go towards archetypes that you're familiar with, you've had success with, and that's what I plan to do tomorrow.
Okay, well, it sounds like a plan. Hopefully you'll get that next one and just finish the day out correctly, you know, because after all this hard work, you know, we want to make sure that we do what we got to do. So congratulations on getting this far, and again, we'll wish you all the best of luck, everybody at home. Again, it's unreal, but I'm also really impressed with how you did it. So thank you for coming by and talking to us, and we will see you next round.